Now for the woman of the hour, Barbara Aimes. Let's find this intro. Online business mentor and freedom navigator, Barbara Aimes specializes in helping emerging coaches and other change makers who want an unchained business to navigate the complexities of internet marketing, as well as the self-imposed limitations of the mind to forge the I love that word, forge the shortest path to financial independence and a joy-filled life. Barbara, are you ready to rock this?
Oh my God, Chris, let's change some lives. Let's get to it.
We are definitely changing some lives. You are now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Thanks so much for joining us today, Barbara. We appreciate you.
I am so happy to be here with you, Chris. You are rocking it. I'm loving this.
Thank you. Thank you. This is just the beginning, Barbara. And since it's the beginning, we're going to talk about the theme, which today is patterns and paradigms. So, Barbara, how has the distinction of patterns, knowing that things repeat, knowing that you can zoom out and look at these trends and different ways to see things so that we can extrapolate data, as well as paradigms, which is the collection of patterns, the collection of beliefs. How have these distinctions empowered you or made a difference for you in your life, your business, and your communities?
Oh my gosh, they've just been everything, right? I mean, really, that's the whole human experience you just described there, is recognizing patterns and either staying stuck in them.
Yep. Yep.
And that is really the process of growth, isn't it? I mean, because the part of the process of growth is being in a pattern, because that's where we have safety and sanctity. That's where we operate the best. But then knowing when it's time to adopt a new pattern or paradigm.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And being able to break through that previous pattern and into that new paradigm. That's how we grow.
I love it. I love the duality nature of what you just said. It's like, on one hand, it's continuing to do what works, aka stay safe.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, innovate, grow, expand, which is evolve, take on those new patterns, new paradigms, see what works, experiment, and evolve.
Speaking of patterns, and that you just brought up one of my new favorite words, Chris, and that is duality.
Yes.
I mean, I see duality in everything.
Yes.
This isn't an either or universe. This is a both and universe,
That's
right? This is male and female. This is heaven and earth. It's about push and pull. It's all of the above, right?
Yeah.
And when we get used to that and embrace that, is when we can really start feeling into our greatest possible self.
Yes. And even, what you're saying is at the molecular level, right? You want to talk about science of this duality. At the molecular level, there's only like the smallest little pinch of energy, and in between, the photons and the electrons and those protons, there's so much space.
Nothing.
There's so much space.
There's nothing.
It's crazy.
I love it.
That's the feminine energy, though. The feminine is the space, and the substance, the matter, is the masculine. And it's just so amazing that it's recreated on every scale
and on every level. And the more that we embrace both and, right, the more we can really impact this world and make of ourselves and raise the consciousness of this world. It's just, I love it.
Barbara, are we going SuperNova right now? Oh my goodness.
We are SuperNova. Oh my God, already. And we're barely 5 minutes into this.
I love it. I love it. So this is awesome. I love duality. I love consciousness. I love growing, expanding, and just really being our greatest possible selves. And I know that we're going to experience that throughout this entire interview. So why don't you share with our audience a little bit from your perspective, your side of the tracks, how you see things, so to speak, what it is that you provide for your clients, for your audience, for your community, and just give us an update on who you are.
Thank you. Well, speaking of duality, so, and without going into my story yet, I will if you want me to, but I'll just say that, my journey has led me finally at I'll be 60 years old next year. I
Yay!
can't believe it. It's like, where did the time go? But finally, at 60, not even 60 years old, I feel like I am finally been corralled,
Wow.
literally nudged and pushed and shoved into my life's work.
Mm.
And that is really a lot of it. And where I've come to is helping, using my past experience and what lights me up,
Yes.
and what I have learned on my journey to get to my heart fire, what sets my heart on fire, is helping change makers. So I am so passionate about helping people who are just driven, like almost beyond reason, just are called to cause transformation in the world. And of
Wait,
course,
did someone say my name?
and of course I count myself as one of those people, but it's all about leveraging your gifts, your experience, whatever. And my gifts they've been revealed to me as just business and marketing.
Love it.
Which, now going back to duality, which I have come to realize is really just relationship.
Yes.
Business is relationship. So first of all, relationships. So if you're being called to make a difference in the world, you are, perhaps unbeknownst to you, but probably beknownst, you are have a goal of growth, period, because that's what it takes. That is absolutely what it takes. Yep. Right. And it's so brilliant the way that the universe works this way. And so to be able to do that, or rather, the best growth vehicle that there is, one of the best, is relationship. We learn through relationship, right? That contrast, and we think of intimate relationships. We think of relationships with our parents and our friends, and all of this, those spur us into growth. And the only vehicle that is better for growth than relationship is business, because business is relationship on steroids.
Yes.
Business is relationships times a million, right? And what I love, so somehow all my experience and everything has led me to help people become successful at creating an unchained business, right? A location independent business, which has been my deepest desire. And of course, that means conquering or embracing, however you want to look at it, online marketing, right? Yes. Internet marketing. And so it's really interesting because so many of the people that are drawn to that, and I count myself in that category when I first got started, get into that because we don't want to have to deal with relationships.
That's right.
Right? We want to click a button and have everybody buy stuff while we're on the beach sipping pina coladas, right? Well, that was my vision too. And when I got into this, and this was not my first rodeo, right? So I came to this after several 6- and 7-figure businesses. So I thought, I've got this in a bag, but oh no. And my initial premise was really like faulty to begin with. So it's been a 3-year journey for me in this business. And that is really like, and of course, when you get there, you look back and you see where everything else that happened to you, or that you did, or that you experienced in your life led you to this. And it was all about relationship. And that's where I realized, and what I teach is relationships. So I'm, and growth, right? And skills, because business and marketing is a skill set. It's a mindset, and it's at its core relationship. So who knew I'd be a relationship coach with masquerading as a business coach, right? But that's what it comes down to.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow, it's such a great description, and I love the epiphany of relationships is it can be one-on-one, can be community driven, whatever it might be, but it's the business is saying, hey, I'm committed to mastering this crazy probably high traffic, high flow of relationships, and making a lot of people's needs be met, so to speak, and meeting a lot of people's needs and serving a lot of people, organizing, corralling.
And Chris, you know what? It's
Mm,
even before the meeting people's needs, because that speaks to product delivery.
totally.
But before you can start delivering your product, you have to get people to hear you.
Mm, wow.
You have to get them to pay attention to you and hear you, open your emails, look at your darn Facebook posts, whatever it is.
Yep.
And going back to duality, I think this is going to be the theme of our conversation here. And that's where relationship is so interesting, because relationship is about me
Mm,
and it's also about you.
right.
And a lot of the challenges that we have is that we're all in the I, me, my thing, when I should be thinking about you and what you want and what you need and what your experience is.
Mm,
Or we're in the you thing, meaning you should be doing this, you da da da, when we should be in the I feel this, I'm experiencing this, right?
mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of that. I've just come to see that as the human experience. We aren't born somehow, most people I've met, at least certainly not me, are not born just getting that. And so it's really that's what marketing is. What I just described there is marketing.
Wow.
Because if you want to be able to reach another person and get them to notice you and want to do, perhaps have you help solve their problem,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to have that empathy. You have to be able to
Yes.
experience, to feel their
Mm.
experience and communicate it. So that's how you're going to get them to notice you.
Yeah. Well, this is perfect because you mentioned about how fulfilling a need, that's the product base, right? And I was also thinking at the level of, if I have a team, what are their
Mhm.
needs? What are their
Yes.
wants, desires, aspirations? How do I fulfill their needs so that they want to be cooperative with me, so that they want to help the customers' needs be fulfilled?
Yes.
Right?
And it's all, but isn't it all relationship? It's your
Yes.
relationship with your team. And that requires
Yes.
you to think of their
Totally.
experience, but
Totally.
also to be the leader, which is you being solid in yours and leading the
Mm.
vision.
The vision.
And
Yep.
this is the same with clients, right? And so, and that just, and it's so funny because, we think when you hear online marketing, everybody thinks, sales funnels and webinars and social media posts and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just at the
Mm.
most superficial level,
Totally.
because none of that's going to work. And that's why there's so many people floundering in that space until you get it at the
Mm.
deeper level underneath. And
Wow.
at its core, it's relationship.
Mm.
Uh, with relationship with self, of course, being number one.
I
Right.
love this. I love this conversation. This is so juicy already. So, Barbara, this is gold, and I want to keep diving in. And let's give people an idea of where you came from. You mentioned multiple 6-7 figure businesses. Tell us about that journey, the challenges, who you had to become to overcome or pass through, deal with, release, move through all that stuff and BS that you encountered along the way.
Oh Lord, have mercy! Have we got another marathon that we can? No, my goodness. Chris, it's really funny. It's been a journey, and I know everybody listening to this has been on their own journey too. And honor that. I want everybody listening to honor that, because
Mm.
and you don't always know. I think I can't remember who this quote was, but it was something like, I'll butcher this, I'm sure, but it's something like, um, you can't really see well into the future.
It's the dots. You can't
You
connect the
can't
dots
connect the
looking
dots
forward.
going forward, but you can connect them going back. Yeah. So you can stand here looking back and go, oh gosh, that's how I got here. So
Yes.
know that every single person on this that's listening to this,
Mm.
your journey matters, and every dot on it is leading you to somewhere, although at many times
Mm.
it seems like it isn't. And that's certainly been my journey. I mean, if you just look at my journey, I'm like all over the board. And I studied Japanese in Japan, then abandoned
Mm.
that and said, "Oh, the hell with it! I'm done with that. I'm fluent, so fine, next." And studied music, and then I became a
Wow.
recording engineer. I have a platinum record to my name, and then said, "I'm tired of the city and music and all this," and
Yep.
started a little fitness training. But I mean, I was just all over the board. But it was interesting. After I got married, I moved to Boulder, Colorado, got married, And I took a big, big, big leap of faith. I think probably one of the most significant things I ever did in my life is I looked at what I wanted in my life. I was working for a business broker at the time. And a business broker is like a real estate broker, but they broker businesses instead of real estate.
Right.
And this guy was great, Merle, and he very wise guy. And I remember he, would work with buyers who are looking for a business, and he gets a lot of wisdom. He said, a lot of buyers are looking for a business, and they're thinking of something cool. They're thinking of the idea of it, right? Like, oh, I want to have a cool little boutique where I'm like getting all these new dresses in every day, and I can work with. And he goes, I want you to just take that out of your mind, like the ideal of what you want in a business. And I want you instead to think about, what do you like to do on a day-to-day basis? How do you like to spend your days? Do you like to be spending your days connecting with people? Right? Or do you not? Some people don't. Do you like writing? Do you like, serving people in different levels or whatever? So I really took to heart what he said. And I thought, well, what do I like to do? And I realized then the thing I really liked more than wished I could have and never had achieved in my life is I wanted to work from home. Lord have mercy. All I wanted to do was just be in my home, go to my kitchen and make a sandwich when I wanted to, And so I started looking at some of the businesses that he had. And let me preface this by saying, Chris, I've always just been this hippie chick from San Francisco, this artsy fartsy musician, right? When you talk about business, I'm like business and mathematics and science were all grouped in the same thing together for me. And they were not me. I was like the artsy chick, right? It's so funny how events can just unfold, because now like it couldn't be any different.
Yep.
Yeah, anyway,
Wow.
so I saw this little business. It was a defunct little toy business that was just making cardboard building bricks. And I looked at it as wholesale, right? So they were selling the blocks to retailers. And I thought, well, that's something. I thought about the lifestyle, and I thought I could work from home and do that. I could have a little warehouse and go there and ship the stuff out and come home and take orders on the phone and sing. And so I looked at that. Now, mind you, I was broker than broke at that point. Okay. But I had a vision and I had a dream, and that I saw as the path to my dream. Wow. And so one of my favorite mentors, Michael Strassner, says, I took a walk out on a skinny branch. And I did something that was so daring to me at that time. And that is that I asked my father to lend me more money than I had ever made in an entire year so that I could purchase this business. A little artsy fartsy check who, mind you, I had spent my whole life trying to get my father's approval. Of course, I later learned I always had it, but I didn't know that. So, and I had always felt like in his eyes, I was a total loser. So that was the catalyst I needed to make a huge shift in my life at that time, because I could not fail. Failure in that, to me, was equivalent to proving that my father was right and that I was a failure. And so I made a vow to get my stuff together. And I said, I am from here going forward going to follow through and do what I say I'm going to do. I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to get things done. I picked up Excel, taught myself Excel, and so I could figure out profit and loss. I got the whole, anyway, long story short, he lent me the money, God bless him. And I ended up growing that. I got that business into 6 figures, like in 9 months.
Awesome.
And I grew it to a multi-7-figure earth-friendly toy company. I became the godmother of earth-friendly toys.
Wow.
So that's where I learned that I just had this aptitude for business and marketing. So perhaps in light of what we were talking about earlier, what I was realizing I really had an aptitude for was relationship, or I should say I was learning about relationship, because I still had one big, big lesson to learn about that. And that was my SuperNova moment.
Let's hear it. Let's dive in, Barbara.
So, yeah, so I grew that business, as I said. And I'll tell you, I never worked harder in my entire life.
Hmm.
And we were talking about duality, and there was no balance for me.
Hmm.
I would shift it all into my masculine. Oh my God.
Hmm.
I think I remember one day, like probably halfway through that business, where I was sitting there just in a befuddled hump thinking, wow, the longer I'm in business, the more of a bitch I become. It's like, what is going on here? Like there was no balance whatsoever. It was all this way. I was married. I just completely put my husband on hold. It was like, sit
Hmm.
down over here. I've got this business to run, and
Yeah.
you just wait for me till I get there. The
Hmm.
problem was, I was never there, right? I kept going after the money. I kept thinking, as long as I was, I had to get to some point, and of course, that point kept shifting, and it was
Hmm.
just all about the money. And I was never stopping to notice the person that I was becoming, and it wasn't my greatest possible self.
Uh-uh.
It was not my greatest possible self. And the universe has this way of doing a little tap.
Hmm.
When
Oh
you
yeah.
don't get it, turns into a slap. When you don't hear that, it comes smack. And that smack for me ended up in 2008
Hmm.
with the economic crisis. Couldn't fund the business anymore because all the
Wow.
banks stopped lending money. And
Hmm.
a business like that relies on a line of credit.
Hmm.
Spent a couple of years trying to shop it to investors. They weren't in the mood. Ended up having to sell it like for basically peanuts,
Yeah.
and decided to at that point. So that was my husband and my sole source of income.
Wow.
So my husband at that during that period, he had what I fondly refer to as an auto repair nonprofit.
Hmm.
He'd had an auto repair business for 6 years that hadn't brought home a dime. So it's very typical, right? He's an auto technician. So he thinks, great, I can do a business. He doesn't
Hmm.
realize that's a whole separate skill set, right?
Yep.
So we made the decision that I would sell the business and go into his business to help him turn it around.
Hmm.
But before that could happen, Chris, the stress of all of it really got to me. And I ended up in the hospital with
Hmm.
my blood. I was collapsing into a coma. Nobody, I didn't know what was happening to me. I just started out a cold, and it ended up with my blood pressure 60 over 30, and my organs were shutting down.
Wow.
And turns out I had, what do you call it, adrenal failure, and
Hmm.
I was very close to death. So after a stint in intensive care and in and out of the hospital, I was diagnosed as having the end stages of AIDS.
Wow.
And everybody, me most of all, were completely surprised, like, where the
Right.
hell did that come from?
Right. Right.
13 years, faithfully married, wouldn't say
Hmm.
happily, but faithfully married. And that was like my wake up call. And again, long story short, so I'm sure you're probably getting this, and your listeners are probably getting this, but I had totally put my relationship on hold, right?
Right.
No
Right.
balance whatsoever in my life, all in my masculine, going for the money, not listening to my heart,
Hmm.
not noticing any of the signs. And so 2 years after I almost died, and I had been working in my husband's shop, and I did manage to turn it around and got us back on stable footing and bringing us, paying our mortgage again and everything.
Hmm.
But that was brought us, of course, to the brink of of divorce.
Hmm.
And 2 years, almost exactly 2 years later, when we were right on the brink of divorce, I discovered in my major supernova moment, my husband confessed to me that the reason that I had almost died of AIDS is that he had spent the entire marriage getting his needs met at a bathhouse. I had no idea. You talk about supernova moment, Chris.
Yeah. Hmm.
That was a smack.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
that was a freight train.
that was a freight train. And talk about business being relationship and relationship being growth, there was clearly something I was missing big time in relationship. And I believe that that's why my business wasn't successful. Plus, it wasn't really what my life's work was.
Right.
It wasn't aligned with that, but I wasn't seeing that. I wasn't noticing that. And the process of recovering from that. So I'm going to stop the story right here and just let you and your listeners know my husband and I are happily married now.
Awesome.
And have the most amazing relationship. Okay. Both of our we have success in both of our businesses. He on his own terms without me involved, and me in this new endeavor that I never would have done. That this whole experience actually was what I needed to be able to do what I'm doing now.
Wow.
And I hearken that to this whole experience.
Wow. That's incredible. So there's a lot in there. What is your self-image? What happened with your self-image when you found that you were at those later stages of AIDS and that almost killed you? Like what came up for you and how you saw yourself or related to yourself?
You know, there was a profound sadness then. I remember laying in the hospital bed thinking, what the hell?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's really funny. This is the conversation I was having in my head. I've made it money-wise, but I completely lost 13 years of my life. I have no experiences, no joy, but, you know, I don't want to say no joy, but, you know, no fun things, no trips. I couldn't do anything with the money because I was working. And I remember lying there thinking there's got to be a way to make money. You know, first thing I thought is, okay, I'm going to give up the dream of having enough money to do whatever I want. And I'll just take what I have and I'll downsize. I'll get a little condo somewhere and I'll spend the rest of my life like having coffee in the morning, reading the newspaper, and, you know, and I remember lying in bed going, no, that's not gonna work. I can't do that.
Nope.
And so I remember thinking there's just got to be a way to have time and money. I am together in the same house together, right. Time and money.
Totally.
Right. And I said, I'm, you know, and I couldn't see how. And I said, but I am, you know, I know that other people have done it, or at least they say they have. And I'm going to figure this out. By gosh or by golly, I'm going to figure this out. So,
wow, that determined decision has already been made. I'm executing on this vision no matter what it takes. Like, I'm sure there was parts where you're like, damn, this sucks. And you know, like being in the suck of it all, disempowerment.
And the funny thing is, Chris, so what did I do? I went right back to the same old pattern. Right. Yep. So determination, like no duality there. Right. Just, you know, I went into my husband's business with basically this attitude of sit down and shut up while I take care of this thing. Wow. You can see why that divorce was like looming. It's like, that is not going to work. So, you know, it's like I tried. So I had this new vision, this new goal, and I tried to get it using the same old patterns. Didn't work.
Wow.
Didn't work. So that's when I got the smack, which was what he and I now call Truth Day.
Truth Day.
That's when he told me the truth.
Wow. It's a beautiful name. It's a beautiful declaration of a day that could be seen in a lot of ways, and was a new story, or a new perception, a new paradigm that you shaped around it. Is it became the first day of the rest of your lives, that you could be unlimited happily, you know?
Well, and do not even begin to think that it was like the day after. It's like,
wand. Oh, perfect.
No, no. It was a couple year journey, but it was it was his courage. I have to tell you straight up front, it was his courage in coming out and saying the truth. Like most people would have probably just slunk under a rock and let the divorce happen. And it's like, okay, God, hopefully nobody will find out.
Right.
But it was that really was the catalyst for us becoming the people who we now are. And it's the people that we are now that's enabled us to have the success in our life, right? It's the success doesn't happen to you. You become the person who can have that success.
That's right.
And one of the big lessons I learned from that carries through in all walks of life, Chris, is that people don't do things to you. They just do things.
And we make it mean it's about us.
It's about us. And we can, but they just do things. They do things out of their own wounding, their own needs, their own past, and you can look at any of the relationships in your life, right? Like, and that to me is one of the ways to become that greatest possible self is when you start looking at the people or incidences in your life that you feel have wronged you. And you start flipping that and realizing that they're just people doing their thing. They didn't do it to you, right? They just did it. And when you flip it, you can really see it how they have done it for you. I mean, I am grateful for, in a strange way, I'm grateful for how that all happened or what even happened, because that's what I needed to become the person that I am now, who is living her life's dream.
That's right. That's right. I love it. I love it. So how else can our audience leverage their rock bottom moments? Like what's the formula? What's the process that they can actually go through to rocket into success, into a new direction, a new vision, into new awareness and consciousness?
Yes, perfect. Forgiveness. That's probably the obvious thing. Now, I will tell you, one of my biggest moments, shortly after Truth Day, I was reeling, right? I had nothing. I was lost in space. I had nothing to hook into. I couldn't and one of the things I was trying to figure out was, what do I do with this relationship? And I remember a good friend of mine called me up, and she was, it had triggered her anger. And so she was just really venting, how could he have, what did she say? Desecrated your vows and your marriage. I mean, she was just, she was so angry at him. And it was in that conversation that I realized, so the next thing is vision. I realized that I have a very strong vision for my life. Even then, that vision, so one of the lessons is really hook into your vision. I've always been vision driven. And I would really recommend everybody listening to hook into a vision. I don't care if it seems, my vision now is to have a trailer. Okay, great. It seems so shallow, but fine. It's a vision. It's something I'm moving towards, right? But I had a vision for my life. And because of that, and it was this conversation, this hatred being hurled, not at me, but in my direction, that I realized, oh my God, I have to forgive him, not for him, but for me.
Yeah.
So regardless, because if I'm going to get to this vision, like I will never be able to create this vision I have for myself as this bitter, angry old cat woman, right?
Right.
I have to let go of that for me. And it was really interesting because I realized right then and there that in fact, I remember telling him right then, I called him up and said, wow, I want you to know that my decision on whether or not to stay in this relationship has nothing to do with what you've done. It has everything to do with who you are now and how you treat me or how you are to me. Wow. And so it's being in the present. This is all that matters. That other stuff, it doesn't, and it's on me. It's my journey to unload it and forgive, because that's for me.
So I have, I'm so grateful we're talking about this. I have a friend, we'll call him a friend, who's very analytical and business minded, and he uses evidence from the past to make logical deductions
Oh
about
my.
how life will be and become.
He's so human, Chris.
So I'm just curious for our audience or other people who might be experiencing that, and relying on patterns and paradigms, past paradigms, to make, solid, safe, grounded, whatever, foundationally sound in their mind decisions. How do we empower them to be more open to being in the present, forgiving, and letting that go?
Yeah, that's a great question, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to judge every moment in the
Mm.
moment and every
Mm.
person and who you are now. Because this whole universe is flying apart, right? We're all shifting and changing moment to moment. Of course, there are patterns, but if we really plug into those patterns and think that they are a constant,
Mm.
they are not. There is no constant in this universe, is there? There's
Nope.
nothing. I think taxes, right?
Right.
But even that, like people squiggle out of that too.
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it really depends on it again. So
Mm.
it's about duality
Mm.
because we rely on patterns to exist in this physical plane.
Right.
We rely on judgment to exist in this physical plane.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
right, like
Yeah.
when you go to sit down in a chair, you're judging, is that chair going to
It's
support
gonna
me?
be there. It's gonna work.
Are those legs going to hold me up? Right. That's how we operate. But then if judgment is taken to the extreme where we just like base this, every blue chair, this last chair I sat in was blue and it broke. So every blue chair I see is broke, right?
Right.
Those are faulty assumptions. So we have to be careful. But our brains work in that way. So we live with judgment. That's how we exist in this physical plane.
Right.
But again, when we download from source, because this is a spiritual experience in a physical body, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When we download from source, we have a greater resource, a much greater resource at our avail than just those physical judgments. I'm going to call it a physical judgment because it's in that same plane as physicality, because it's our brain that's making computations
Of this 3D, what it sees, patterns, movements, sight, smells, sounds, all this is in the world that our brain can interpret and then feed to us, to our mind.
That is such a tiny, small part of our intelligence. Malcolm McLaren, he wrote in Blink, when you look at like a baseball, a catcher, right?
Uh-huh.
That ball is flying at that catcher at, I don't know, is a couple 100 miles an hour or right?
This is what, 90.
Okay, whatever. I don't, I'm not a sports person,
fast.
But okay, great. It's fast, right? It's super fast. There is no way that your brain can calculate where to place your hand at the right time and communicate that to your limbs. It's not possible. So how is it possible that that person is catching that ball? There's an intelligence that's so much deeper than what's in their brain.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm saying. When you just rely on that judgment, you're narrowing your intelligence to a tiny little sliver of your total capacity.
Wow.
Right? It's like that catcher trying to actually like calculate. Let's see, the ball's coming here. Now it's going this way. I better raise up 2 inches, no, a millimeter to the left. Right? That's how I try to catch a ball. No, it doesn't work.
I love it.
I'm too scared to let the download come through. I'm just, there's a ball coming at me. No. I can report to you that it doesn't work. So the brain is really just one small portion of our intelligence.
Totally.
And judgment is in the realm of the brain.
It's the receiving station of the mind, isn't it? Like the brain receives the mind. It's like that's how the mind sends its signals and electrical impulses through fourth or fifth dimension or sixth dimension through to a third dimension to make our body move and do what it's going to do.
Wow. Okay, you're over my head. That sounds great to me now. I just think of it as there's a so I'm sure what you said is
Right,
true.
right, right, right.
I don't think about it in terms of dimensionality. I know other people
Mm,
do.
yeah,
It's awesome. I just think about, I source,
yeah,
your spirit being, and part of, and it's an integral part. If you to become your greatest possible self,
totally.
you've got to integrate all of you, and that is the bigger part of you than your physical being.
Yes.
And so part of this experience here, and part of this experience of becoming successful in business, or even whatever success looks like to you,
Mm-hmm.
is being able to get out of your way, right? You've probably heard that term before. I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
your viewers have. And that means, like, realize that your mind is just one small piece of who
Mm,
you are, and let it come through you. God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it.
mm, beautiful.
Intuition.
Yeah.
It's
So
all the above.
you mentioned that forgiveness is a critical component, and then the vision as well. Was there anything else to be able to leverage our rock bottom moment to achieve that supernova success?
Gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Big time
Yes.
gratitude.
Yes.
And gratitude, I've just really recently seen that gratitude is really tied to love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like self-love. I've had a gratitude practice for years and years and years, and
Mm-hmm.
spontaneous. I just wake up every morning, and when I'm in bed, before I get out of bed, I start thinking of things that I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep thinking, so I'm using the mind to access my soul or my inner knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep thinking of things I'm grateful for until I feel the feeling of gratitude.
That's right.
So I don't get out of bed until I feel that feeling of gratitude. Well, one of the most interesting things about Truth Day was, spontaneously after that, I was doing my gratitude. I call it my gratitude litany in the morning.
Mm.
And just spontaneously, it shifted from I'm grateful for to
Mm.
I love myself.
Mm.
And I had never felt that before. And that was one of the gifts of Truth Day. But
Mm.
I think gratitude can help you access self-love. It can help you access self-worth, can certainly get you through stressful moments, and it can help you access forgiveness.
Yeah.
All of those things. It's kind of like the base. And I'm not really sure the relationship between gratitude and love, but
Mm.
they're certainly entwined, and everything flows from those.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. I love that gratitude is such a powerful place to start from because it's what is. Gratitude for what is or what could be. It's like it's either existence, the appreciation, the affinity, the allowing, the acceptance of what is or of what could be. Gratitude for what's coming, gratitude for what was. It's like this place to stand on for adoration, appreciation, to increase. Appreciation is increasing. So I love
Love
that.
that.
Such
Yeah.
a great place to stand. And then
Mm.
forgiveness and the vision, like those are so powerful as well. I think those are three ridiculously powerful principles to
You
master.
know, it's like, use vision as an anchor in here. I think here's where people
Mm,
get hung up with vision, is they think that they have to create this vision, this
right,
one vision. This is
right.
my purpose, my vision. Oh crap. It's like like I said, my vision now is to have a trailer. It's fine. And I don't care if I get one or not, to be honest with you, but it's my hook. It's
Yeah.
the thing to go for. And if it
Mm,
shifts, so be it. If something else comes into my world and I say, "Oh, wow, that looks a lot better than a trailer," that's my new vision, right? That's totally fine. But it's a grounding.
mm,
It's an anchor. It's a grounding. It's something to shoot for. Because if you're not shooting for something, you're
mm.
just hanging out.
Totally,
You're
totally.
just,
Yeah,
and mind you, I'm no judgment. That sometimes, there are times where you need to hang out and kind
yeah.
of rest, right?
Stillness. Yeah.
But and if you're on a path of growth, you're better shooting for something, and the clearer that something is, the better.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
The more detailed it is, the more real it is. 100 freaking percent. Barbara, this is gold, and you shared some really really incredible stuff with us, and your own journey and how you broke through and overcame and moved through some incredible challenges. I acknowledge you for that. Any last minute or final thoughts for our audience to really step into wisdom, how to leverage their rock bottom moment, their pain, their suffering to create their supernova success?
I think the last thing I just want to leave with your audience, Chris,
Hmm.
I want everybody to know how important they are.
Hmm.
In this universe, each and every person on this planet, you are at the cutting edge of moving this universe forward. And you are so loved. It's almost an epidemic that it's hard for us to feel that ourselves. And if I could bestow upon everybody anything, it would be to know how important you are and
Hmm.
how loved you are.
Amazing. Amazing. I felt it. I felt it, Barbara. I feel it through the screen. Awesome. 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 So, Barbara, I'm sure we have listeners and people who want to stay connected with you. What are the next steps for them? How can we stay connected?
Well, I have a little gift for anybody that this talk resonated with,
Okay.
that's maybe trying challenged to get through their own supernova moments. And that is I call it the supernova breakthrough formula. So
Hmm.
it's a little bit about what we talked about here. And I think there was a fourth step that honestly I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're all in that book. In this, it's a little training book,
Okay.
and in a lot greater detail.
Okay.
And along with it, is a gratitude journal.
Ooh.
I talked about how important gratitude is. So it's a nice little starter to just, be just to prompt people to start pulling into their awareness some of the things that they're grateful for. So to get that, you just need to go to successsupernova.com
Mm-hmm.
/breakthrough.
.com/breakthrough. Got it. Awesome. And then social media or any other ways that they can stay in contact?
Yeah, come and visit me at Barb Aimes. That's my page, or join my group, which is the Changemakers Client Attraction Online Group, and it's a group for transformational workers, people who want to cause transformation in the world and want to expand their reach through the internet.
Awesome. Woohoo. Barbara, you rock. Thank you so much for coming on today. I knew it from the start to the finish. Had amazing energy, crazy, incredible depth, and just awesome experience. Thank you for showing up. And everyone listening, watching, definitely take that next step with Barbara. Stay connect with her, join her Facebook group, and make sure you keep coming your greatest possible self with Barbara. And Barb, thanks so much for being on. We appreciate you. Have the best day ever.
Woo! Love you, Chris. Love everybody.
Awesome. We'll see you soon, okay?
All righty. Bye-bye.
Take
Thank
care.
you.